The ideal about being a photographer is not about speed. Sometimes it is, but a lot of times it's not. Depending on how you were taught how to take photography, you might be a sports photographer, so you're wanting to take things passing, the football game, the best shot at a basketball game. All those things are kind of like speed. You know, you want to take as many shots as possible to capture that one moment. And then you're going to separate all your photos and you'll take that one shot. So I'm going to look at this a little bit differently. I shoot a lot of different stuff. I shoot people, scenery, architecture sometimes. So this is kind of where I'm going to go with. This is an old picture to Quamanon Falls. The reason why I took it is because if you can see, it kind of looks like beer. So, not that I'm a beer drinker, but I thought that it was a pretty good picture. There are times where, you know, you might see the greatest sunset. It changes. So you have to wait. And you'll get your best shot. And there's another time where you're waiting and waiting and waiting, and you have to stop it down. You get your f-stop all the way up, and your time as long as you can. 10 seconds seems like an eternity. 3 seconds isn't that bad, but once you see what you get, because you can't see anything at all, you'll be really happy. Mackinac Bridge. And then there are times where you're just trying to enjoy yourself and you're in the element. And that's when you capture bees buzzing in and out of flowers. So this is kind of like the bumbling bumblebee. Shots you'll remember and you'll never forget. And then there's architecture. Downtown Chicago. I think that's where I was at. Yeah, downtown Chicago. And you're getting the reflections of buildings and something triggers in your brain to take a picture. So, you do. Those are just a few pictures. I've been shooting photos since I was in high school. And my dad gave me my first camera. And I've traveled with many different cameras. This is my first change-up. Little camera does a small video. It acts as a 35mm because you can focus off the lens. So I really enjoyed this camera. Takes great pictures. I think I had a different camera, but if I can show you more stuff, I will when I put it all together. Maybe you'll see some of my earlier work with a different camera. But that's one. Then I ended up getting another camera. Shoot weddings and portraits and people. So I went from film to digital when I moved here in 1999. Before that, I was shooting a 35mm film. But I wasn't really in a rush to change. I thought that I would always be shooting, you know, film, and the digital was going to take something away from what I could shoot. But then I got a real good epiphany. It's not really about the camera. The camera can capture light. That's what the job is solely. They'll tell you it does all kinds of magical stuff. But most photographers, professional photographers, don't use auto. They use manual. And manual is setting your aperture, focus, and light. Sometimes they just kind of let it go and let it auto-correct, but for the most part they control all aspects, and they shoot in RAW. So when they go back to editing it, they can tweak it even more as if they were in the darkroom. The other thing is, a lot of people now say, oh, my phone, I get these fantastic shots with my phone. Who needs to buy a camera? Well, some people get fantastic shots with their phone. Some people get fantastic shots with their camera. It's what you have in your hand to a certain degree, not always. Sometimes a lot of it is glass, and you know, people, this is a 70 to 200 lens, and it's got me some great shots. And it's 2.8, so when you're shooting portraits, you get the person and everything else is gone. It's blurry. You can really compress the image so you can capture just that person that you're shooting. So the back of the person's gone, the front of whoever's involved in it isn't in focus, but just that one person. So a lens is a very important piece. So even if you have a half-baked camera that you get good pictures out of, but you want something a little bit better, don't buy another camera, buy glass. The next time that you have the money, buy a little bit better camera. But don't break your parents' back saying, I need the biggest and best thing, because you got to learn what to look for. Once you learn what you're looking for, then who cares about what camera you got? You can do it with your phone. The other thing is, if you're gonna use your phone, the app that comes with most of your phones is decent. It's provided. There's other apps that are better. So don't get stuck on saying, well, this is the best that's there. It's not. Because there's some apps that will create a 36 megapixel picture. It takes a long time for it to process it, but when you get the picture, you can blow it up. A lot of times people say, well, I got an 8 megapixel camera. The biggest it will shoot before it starts to distort is 8 by 11. And most of the camera manufacturers several years ago, that's what the basis was, is to shoot something 8 by 11. You put it in your computer, you bring up your DPI, and next thing you know, you got a billboard size print, and it looks perfect. But they've added dots per inch, and so now it's a huge picture. But they kept it simple. Now the ideal has changed. So now it's how many megapixels do you need? You need 24, 42, 50, 100 megapixels. 100 megapixels is what they considered of a large format camera. It's not going to take a bunch of pictures. It's going to take one, maybe 1.5. The cameras that I showed you, this one, this small one, I think it was like 3.5 frames per second. So it wasn't the fastest camera, but it was able to grab stuff pretty good. The color was great. I didn't have to edit a whole lot, so I enjoyed the camera. My other camera that I showed you, same thing. It focused really close, 6.5 frames a second, so I could capture a wedding where the bride throws the bouquet. It travels through the air, and one of her bridesmaids catches it. I could catch that. The camera that I'm shooting this on shoots 11 frames per second. And so if I was at a football game a long time ago, about a year ago, and was taking photos and saw this kid get hit, and he flew through the air, and I caught the whole sequence of him getting hit and flying through the air till he landed again, and that was pretty cool. So you know, that's shooting fast. So you have to figure out what kind of photographer are you going to be. Are you going to be those ones that take their time, capture the moment, a portrait photographer? There's nothing fast about shooting that. I shoot graffiti. There's nothing fast about shooting graffiti. Shooting graffiti is finding the graffiti, taking a picture of it, and locking it in. And it's a great way to shoot. The other thing is, going back to lenses, I shoot with manual focus lenses. A lot of people want to spend big bucks on Sony lenses or Canon lenses. Those are good lenses, don't get me wrong. Sometimes there's a good lens that Canon makes. It's, I don't know if you can find it. It's a 50 millimeter 1.8, and it's usually about 70 bucks. Sometimes you can get it for 50. It looks very cheap. It looks almost like it's all plastic, but it does a great job. It's a really nice lens. But like I said, going back to manual focus lenses, I shoot manual focus lenses because it's organic, meaning that you have to do all the thinking. The camera's not thinking for you. Only thing it's doing is you set it to priority, and priority takes in the light that's available. So if it's darker, you have to open it up more. If it's brighter, you have to close it down. You have to use a higher like a F9. Things are really in focus, but there's less light coming in. Takes a little longer for the sensor to pick up your image, but your image is crystal clean. So I use a lot of different things.
Somehow we gotta run with this dream. Somewhere I think you know what I mean. Sometimes you gotta know when to scream. Someone needs to push me over this thing. Somehow we gotta run with this dream. Somewhere I think you know what I mean. Sometimes you gotta know when to scream. Someone needs to push me over this thing.
Put it on the table, it's Cain and Abel. Hold on tight, better hope that I save you. Made with a handle, a candle to anyone standing. Demand an example. A handful of MCs that I really run with. Everybody else on the shelf with the dumb shit. Better run quick, look heavy in the eyes. Hold it in the dark, to kill a sunrise. Get ready for the strong divide. In the rain where the gremlins multiply. Yeah, we're not supposed to try. Better cut his mic and coach this guy. Made in a minute, yeah, minute made. Tell him hold up quick, tell him renegade. Y'all featherweight gumshoe, leave it alone. Or watch birds of a feather get hit with one stone. Everybody compete for one throne. We build in a village and making our own. That's one dead poet that's licking and throwing up, rumming the coconut. Another one roll it up, twisted inside. High and I'm driving, I'm bobbing and weaving and bobbing and writing. Thunder and lightning, hop on the mic and we shutting them down like liquor and Viking. And striking them twice. The back of the night that I took at my back when I tried to be nice. Excelling the vice and smoking the dream. The eye in the pyramid scheme. Know what I mean? With a broken dream and a handful of gasoline. Know what I mean? With a broken dream and a handful of gasoline.
Somehow we gotta run.